You start the book out talking about relief, and in it, you talk about this experience that you had, and I'm jumping to like page 110 or 115 here, but you are supposed to go to the Oscars that night before, trying on a Vera Wing dress, I think it was,
Mhm.
and you said to yourself, the last thing I'm going to do today is drink or do anything. I want to be present for tomorrow when it happens. And I think a lot of people can relate to what happens next. A friend comes over and they say, hey, how about we just have one glass of wine?
Mhm.
And you put down your guard and you say, oh, this is just going to be one glass. And then the night starts to unfold, and now you've had multiple glasses of wine, and then other substances get involved. And next thing you know, you arrive home the next day at 5:30. And I think what you related at that moment is what I think a lot of people have probably felt, and that is you're cursing yourself out for why you did it. You're second guessing yourself. You're wanting to punch yourself for doing it. Why, when we go through things like that, is it so hard for us to change directions when, as you yourself went through, I'm sure after that incident, that wasn't the one thing that changed it. It probably puts like this inner voice in the back of your head that I need to start making changes, but oftentimes we ignore them. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's a couple of reasons. More and more during that time, that was towards the end, I think it was about a year before I actually got sober. And I started to have more of those moments where I was missing things or not showing up for things that were important to me, that I was upset about in the light of day or in my quote unquote right mind when I was clear. But I couldn't help myself. I didn't realize that I was suffering from alcoholism or addiction. I thought I had this inability to live a quote unquote normal life, that I was so messed up from X, Y, and Z that I was not able to do this thing called life like everybody else. And so I was messy and inconsistent and manipulative and dishonest a lot of the time. And I didn't know why. So that was for starters. And that just leads to a lot of shame and a lot of feeling bad about yourself and creating a narrative that, well, this is all there is, and really feeling stuck. What I then learned when I found out that I actually was suffering from alcoholism and addiction was that the way my brain was operating was anytime I put a substance into my body, whether it was wine or a drug, that it immediately went into the reptilian part of my brain, took over, because this was something that I had learned would give me a reward, would give me instant pleasure. And so I lost the ability to use my thinking part of my brain. That was no longer coming online once I had put the alcohol in. So once I had that one drink, even though I had the best of intentions to go home and leave and get a good night's sleep and all of that, that I no longer was online in that way. So I couldn't go off my memory of, "Well, remember when you did this last week and this happened?" I couldn't go off of, "I promised myself I would do this." I was completely driven by this old part of my brain that was saying that I needed this next drink or line or whatever it was, like I needed air or water. And it made it impossible for me to stop, which is why abstinence is usually called for once you have this kind of an addiction. That being said, there was that moment of clarity a year later when I had enough of those mornings and enough of that disappointment and enough of that feeling bad about myself, that when something happened that really triggered my PTSD from many years before, I felt this literal unwinding of myself as I was trying to catch my breath and trying to stay centered. and felt myself falling into this hole. And I heard this really loud voice inside of me say, if your friend does not make it, you will go on to get worse and you will die. You will not be able to sustain this trauma, this sadness. And I had no coping skills. And then I heard another voice really quickly, which pretty much emanated this other voice that I heard pretty quickly after, which felt like it was coming from also from inside as I sat on the floor looking at my nephew, that said, no, you're not allowed to get worse. You're only allowed to get better. You need to show up for him. And that gave me enough confidence or courage, rather, to call my therapist and say, what do I do? What should I do? Is there another way? And should I go to one of those meetings? Is what I said. And he said, yeah, do you know anyone that you can ask to go with? And I said, yes, I know this one lady. And he said, ask her before you see me next time and go. And that's where it started.